Okay, right off the top, our live monitors take us to Houston, Texas, where Vice President Kamala Harris will very soon deliver a eulogy today for the late Texas Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee. She will follow the words of the man you see here on the screen in front of me, former President Bill Clinton, who is right now addressing that congregation, paying tribute to that former lawmaker in the United States. We're going to take you back to Texas shortly, but first we have to get to that breaking news. The U.S. and Russia completing their biggest prisoner swap in post-Soviet history. This is a look right now from Turkey's capital where that exchange happened. Now, this exchange will bring Americans wrongfully detained by the Russian government home after months of negotiations. So we know right now 3 Americans held in Russian prisons are on their way home, wheels up as we speak. Wall Street Journal reporter Evan Gershkovich, Marine veteran Paul Whelan, and Russian-American radio journalist Alsu Kermasheva. We just heard from President Biden touting this success. Listen.
This is an incredible relief for all the family members gathered here. It's relief to the friends and colleagues all across the country who've been praying for this day for a long time. The deal that made this possible was a feat of diplomacy and friendship. Multiple countries helped get this done. They joined the difficult, complex negotiations at my request, and I personally thank them all again. And I've thanked them personally, and I'll thank them again. All told, Russia has released 16 prisoners. 8 Russians who are being held in the West will be sent home as well. These 16 prisoners from Russia that Russia has released include 4 Americans, 5 Germans, 7 Russian citizens who are political prisoners in their own country. So for anyone who questions whether allies matter, they do. They matter. And today is a powerful example of why it's vital to have friends in this world. Friends you can trust, work with, and depend upon.
President Biden there not only saying this is a major success, but punctuating the importance of allies. And we are in real time tracking a wide range of reactions to this release. First of all, Paul Whelan's family, who have been without him for so many months. They released this statement saying in part, quote, "Paul Whelan is free. Our family is grateful to the United States government for making Paul's freedom a reality." They went on to say, "We'd like to thank President Biden, Secretary of State Blinken, and National Security Advisor Sullivan for their engagement with the Russian Federation to create the environment where Paul's freedom became a possibility." We've also heard from the Wall Street Journal, where Evan Gershkovich is a reporter. That paper says in part, quote, "Evan and his family have displayed unrivaled courage, resilience, and poise during this ordeal, which came to an end because of broad advocacy for his release around the world." CBS News senior White House and political correspondent Ed O'Keefe joins us live now. Ed, you were just in the room with President Biden. Yes, this was political, but that announcement also felt personal. So let's talk about the pieces on the board, so to speak. How did this swap come together, Ed?
It's been in the works for quite a while, Reed, and it involved, as you've reported there, 7 different countries and some pretty significant diplomacy by several senior U.S. officials and the vice president, speaking with counterparts in Germany, in Russia, in Turkey, and those Eastern European countries involved in today's swap. The president making clear in those White House comments just a little while ago that this is a personal and very important issue for him, given the element of family, that there are families that are still hoping for the return of their loved ones, and now, in this case, 4 on their way back to the United States tonight. The president also, in those remarks, you'll notice, touted the importance of alliances and of diplomacy. That is a direct repudiation of the previous administration and former President Donald Trump's attempts to get back to the White House. You heard him asked. President Trump has said that he could get Evan Gershkovich back. The president said, well, then why didn't he do so when he was president? Gershkovich was captured after Trump was out of office, but the point being there are dozens of Americans detained overseas. If the previous administration was serious about it, they should have done something about it. We are expecting that the president will head, as he said in his remarks, to Joint Base Andrews here outside of Washington later today when those families return home to greet them personally. And it's also notable that the White House and other U.S. officials have called out 2 details that speak to the political moment we're in, Reed. First of all, that the president himself was making calls on that fateful Sunday afternoon when he announced to the world that he would not be running again for re-election, speaking with his Slovenian counterpart just an hour before that tweet that released the letter telling the world of his intentions. The other is that the vice president, during recent travels to Europe, was in direct talks with the German Chancellor, Olaf Scholz, about some of the details of this to try to compel the German government to consent to this agreement that required releasing a key Russian national from a German prison. All of it designed to sort of say, look, for those that had doubts that the president can do the job as president, there he was doing it, even in his hour of greatest political peril. And for those of you wondering about the vice president and her utility when it comes to foreign affairs, she too was directly involved in these negotiations at key points to get Germany to come along.
She's also echoed in recent minutes what Secretary of State Blinken has said, which is we are going to vow to continue getting Americans home who are wrongfully detained, not only in Russia, but in other countries as well. Do you think this will embolden them to be able to continue to push for more Americans to be released?
Oh, that work continues on a daily basis, Reed. There are several Americans known to be detained in countries all over the world. There may be cases, frankly, that are not as well publicized as yet. But there is an entire office at the State Department that focuses on this. It's a major priority for the President and his National Security Council. And in this case, the CIA was involved because of its relationships with Russian spy agencies. So it remains a top-of-mind goal of this President, and the kind of action exhibited today, the bold move to get several countries on the same page to make this happen, is the kind of work, at least in the foreign policy space, we should anticipate will continue in the closing months of the president's term. Now that he doesn't have to worry about his own political future. Remember, he signaled in his remarks that he would be working on big things domestically and in the foreign space. This is certainly a good example of that, and there are several more cases yet to come of detained Americans in Russia and elsewhere.
Ed O'Keefe, thank you so much for that. So CBS News intelligence and national security reporter Olivia Gazis live on the stream with us right now. You just heard Ed talk about this multinational approach and the foreign space and the political significance of that. How did this all come together? Which nations really stepped forward to work with the Biden administration?
Sure, Reed. Well, the U.S. officials who are intimately involved in these negotiations have described them as the most complex in U.S.-Russian history and even including U.S.-Soviet history, when, as we know, spy swaps hit a crescendo. And the reason for that, as you and Ed were discussing, is because of the sheer number of players, countries involved, and also because of the types of prisoners. These are not spies. These are political prisoners that Russia is trying to wrangle and extract concessions from other countries from. So we've learned since this news broke that half a dozen countries involved: U.S., Russia, Germany, Poland, Slovenia, Norway, Turkey as the site of the swap. 3 U.S. citizens and 1 legal permanent resident going to set foot this evening on U.S. soil. 12 German nationals or Russian political dissidents heading to Germany. And yes, 8 Russian nationals making their way back home to Moscow. Among them, somebody that the Russians have wanted for a long, long time, convicted murderer and former FSB agent Vadim Krasikov, who has been serving a life sentence in a German prison. You heard President Biden speak to the importance of the relationship with Germany and other allies, and thank Olaf Scholz in particular for making a concession, because that was the key, we are told, to unlocking this entire constellation that has led to the freedom of U.S. prisoners now.
Yeah, the German chancellor getting a lot of praises sung by President Joe Biden. Okay, thank you so much for that conversation.